Dhanvat pranam to you.
Dhanvat pranam Prabhu. Jai Shri Prabhupada. Hare Krishna devotees, thank you all for joining. Today is the part 3 of understanding pure bhakti or Uttama bhakti. So we completed 2 sessions reading from Srila Rupa Goswami's Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Nectar of Devotion. Upon devotees' request, I would like to cover why the sadhana bhakti of course, from Nectar of Devotion today. And maybe we can set aside some time for Q&A for the last 3 sessions. During today's class, I'm going to address some of the questions asked offline. So I may add some additional points just to address those questions asked offline. So with that, let's start with the prayers. Om Jnana Timirandasya, Jnananjana Salakaya, Saksharan Malitamena, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha, Mukam Karoti Vachalam, Pangam Langayate Girim, Yat Kripa Tamaham Vande Shri Gurundina Taranam. So let's start with Rupa Goswami's definition of pure bhakti. Radha Damodar Prabhu will be sharing the verse. Because this is the most important verse in Nectar of Devotion, because all the definitions, succeeding definitions in the book depend on this definition. So it is the most important. So just let us go through that before we start talking about Vaidya Bhakti today. So I'm going to read it, the Sanskrit first. Anyabhilashita sunyam, jnana karmadi anavritam, anukulena krishnanu, silanam bhaktir uttama. Srila Prabhupada's translation: when first class devotional service develops, one must be devoid of all material desires, knowledge obtained by monistic philosophy, and fruitive action. The devotee must constantly serve Krishna favorably as Krishna desires. So it's a beautiful verse. So Rupa Goswami says that pure bhakti means is devoid of all material desires, and also it is devoid of aspiration for liberation, impersonal liberation, and also it is devoid of fruitive action. So the devotee, and another qualification of Uttama Bhakti is devotee must constantly serve Krishna favorably. That's the important point. Anukulena Krishna anusilanam, as Krishna desires. So that is the definition of Uttama Bhakti. And Rupa Goswami says this definition of pure bhakti includes 3 parts: sadhana bhakti, bhava bhakti, and prema bhakti. So usually we say these 3 are like a stages of bhakti. So we touched upon sadhana bhakti a little bit in the last class, bhava bhakti and prema bhakti also. And then we talked about if you practice bhakti, what are the benefits one gets in terms of the auspicious qualities and things like that. So we discussed that in the last class. So today we are going to focus on sadhana bhakti. So what is sadhana bhakti? Anybody remembers what is sadhana bhakti from the previous session? The definition of sadhana bhakti?
Devotional service following rules and regulations prescribed by the spiritual master and the shastras.
Okay, devotional service following rules and regulations prescribed by spiritual master and shastras. Very good. So the exact definition is Rupa Goswami gives. It means the activities which uses senses and mind that leads to bhava or spiritual love for Krishna is called sadhana bhakti. So in other words, the activities which leads us from Shraddha stage. Shraddha means faith, initial faith, all the way to bhava stage. And everything between this is called sadhana. Shraddha, then comes sadhu sangha, then we come bhajana kriya, then comes anartha nivritti, then comes nishta, then after that comes ruchi, and comes ashakti, then comes bhava. So anything from Shraddha to between Shraddha and bhava is called sadhana. So sadhana can be Vaidhi or it can be Raganuga. So there are 2 types of sadhana bhakti, but they both lead to bhava. So the perfection of sadhana is come to the level of bhava, level of the pure love for Krishna, the beginning stage of pure love for Krishna. So if you look at this definition of sadhana bhakti, it falls within the general definition of Uttama Bhakti, right? So sadhana is of two types. So one is called Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti, and the second type is called Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti. So today I'm going to focus more on Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti. So Vaidhi means rules. Vaidhi means Vaidhi comes from Vidhi. Vidhi means rules. So the root word is Vidhi. So it means one should follow the rules of Shastras in practicing Bhakti. So that's what simple definition of Vaidhi means. Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti means. In other words, we do Bhakti because Shastras say so. Shastra recommends Bhakti and Shastra gives the principles of Bhakti. So I want to follow those principles and I want to practice because Shastra is telling that. So the impetus to do Bhakti is the words of Shastras. That is Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti. Or you can say Vaidhi Bhakti, both are same. So, however, Padma Purana says all rules are there to make us remember Krishna and never forget him. So that is what, so the rules of Shastras that we follow in Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti, which will make us to remember Krishna and never forget him. So anybody remembers the verse from Padma Puran which says that, confirms that principle? Smartavya Satatam Vishnu, Vismartavya na Jatujit, Sarve Vidhi Nisheda Shuyur, Itayur Eva Kinkara. So in order for Jiva to do Vaidya Bhakti, he has to have basic faith, very important. So, and with that faith, one chooses to associate with devotees. That's what I was talking about. From Shraddha, one comes to Sadhu Sangha. So how do we come and associate with devotees? Only when you have faith, initial faith in Bhakti. That initial faith can be faith in devotees, or it could be faith in the Shastras, or it could be faith in some other aspects of Bhakti, eating prasadam, or kirtan, or association, whatever it is. But the initial faith brings us to associate to the association of devotees. And from devotees, one gets Shastras. Because when you associate, we talk about Krishna. So like how we are associating here, we are discussing about the Lord. So from devotees, one gets Shastras. And then the Jiva follows the Shastras and the devotees. So that's how the Bhakti starts to develop more in the Jiva. So here the Jiva's inspiration to do Bhakti activities is coming from the rules of Shastras. And how do they learn the rules of Shastras? From the association of devotees. So it is very important for Vaidya Sadhana Bhakti, the sadhakas, to have constant association of devotees. So that's how we learn the rules of Shastras. And also the following the rules of Shastras is not by force. It does not come by force. It is the free will of the devotee by which he chooses to practice Bhakti. Very important point. So some people may learn the Shastras, I mean, they may learn the rules of Shastra in association of devotees, but they don't have enough faith to follow those rules. So we cannot force them to do it. Ultimately, no one can force the Jivatma, because Jiva, if you force somebody, they might do it artificially for some time. And if there is no faith, what happens? So you're asking somebody to do it, but they don't have faith. What happens to them if you force somebody to do it? Yeah, Prabhakar Prabhu?
I was going to say they will fall back to wherever they are before.
Very good. They'll retract. They'll fall back. Very good. Any other answer?
They might commit offenses.
They may commit offenses. Very good, Prabhat Prabhu. So Jiva might do it artificially for some time if there is no faith to begin with, or the force will automatically become weakened, and eventually the Jiva will break the principles, fall back to the original status or state, or they may also commit offenses, or they break the principles and make more aparadha and so on. So it's not by force. But if somebody with off faith accepts the devotees and accepts the principles of bhakti spoken in Shastras, and they try to practice it, then Krishna starts to help them. There is a beautiful verse Krishna speaks in Bhagavad Gita. He talks about the 5 factors of action. No, it's a very, very important. It says that Adhisthanam Tata Karta Karanam Sa Pritak Vidam. Then it says Vividascha Pritak Chesta Daivam Chaivatra Panchamam. So those includes the body, the first factor of action, the senses, second, the endeavor, which is the effort, that is third, the jiva is the fourth, and the Supreme Lord is fifth. If you want any action to be completed, these 5 factors has to be there. If it is even one is missing, then we may not be able to complete the action. So it is very important. So in performing any actions, of course, definitely the jiva is influenced by the gunas, isn't it? Because there is a material nature, and we also have our nature by birth. So the 3 modes of material nature influences our actions. But the free will of the jiva is always there. Very important point to understand. Even though the modes of material nature may influence us, but our free will is there. That is not taken away by 3 modes of material nature. So therefore, the jiva can choose to do sinful activity, or he can choose to do bhakti activity. That's the point I'm making. So one who follows the scriptures, one who follows the principles of bhakti spoken in Shastras in the association of devotees, then the Lord's role for jiva in the material world is not neutral anymore. Very, very important point to understand. Generally, Lord is very neutral. We discussed that in the last class. He says he permits the jiva to do his activities, whether good or bad, whatever. Lord just permits. He advises the jiva soul, don't do it, it's wrong. But we won't listen and we go and do it, whatever comes to our mind. And we are also responsible for good or bad results because we have chosen to do it. It's not the Supreme Lord. So that's what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. Anybody knows the verse where Krishna says he is the permitter and also overseer? Which verse? Famous verse. He's seated in everyone's heart, and he permits and he oversees the jiva. Well, Sarvasya Chaham Hridhi Sanvishto is correct. One verse. What is the other verse? It talks about the function of the super soul. It says, Upadrashta Anumantascha Bharta Bhokta Maheshwara Paramatmeti Chapi Yukto Dehesmin Purusha Para. Krishna says, yet in this body there is another transcendental enjoyer who is the Lord, the Supreme Proprietor, who exists as an overseer, Upadrashta and Anumanta, permitter, and who is known as Paramatma, the super soul. And Krishna says, I am seated in everyone's heart. I do 2 functions. Okay, I just oversee what the jiva does, and I also permit them. So these are 2 things he does. So, however, the devotee, with the devotees, the Lord acts very differently. He is not neutral anymore. He is not like overseer and permitter anymore. He is no longer neutral. He promises to save the devotees. He promises to guide the devotees. Dadami buddhi yogam tam, he says. So this shows that the greater power of bhakti. And therefore the process of bhakti looks like a little bit surprising and contrary, because here he says, I am the overseer and permitter, but with the devotee, he just gets involved in their life. And he gives amazing results also, the impossible results. That is because it's directly related to the Supreme Lord. So through the process of bhakti, we can say those 5 factors, those 5 factors, the Lord becomes a prominent factor of the action. That is his mercy. Very important point to understand. So when you practice Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti, when you start to practice bhakti with of faith in the association of devotees or under the guidance of devotees, according to Shastras, then Lord is not neutral anymore in our life. He becomes a prominent factor of our activities. Very important. People generally ask this question also. So if he is a prominent factor of action for devotees, at what level of bhakti he becomes prominent? He operates at all levels of bhakti. What's an example? We see Gajendra, the elephant. He got mercy even though he was not in pure bhakti. He was in an elephant body. He was not practicing pure devotional service. But he gave mercy to Gajendra. He relieved Gajendra from pain. What is another example anybody can give from Shastras where the Lord became a prominent factor for a person who is not even practicing bhakti?
Bali Maharaj.
Yes, fantastic. Bali Maharaj, yes. He was not practicing pure devotion, but the Lord gave costless mercy. Yes, Prabhu?
Ajamil, sir.
Oh, beautiful, brilliant example. Ajamil. Ajamil, even a person like Ajamil had no bhakti. But only qualification is no offense. So therefore, he chanted the holy name and he got rescued by the Vishnu Siddhas. One more example, Prabhat Prabhu. I saw some hands going up. Prabhat Prabhu.
I was going to say Ajamil, Prabhu.
Ajamil, okay.
Yeah.
Atmaya Mataji.
Mrigari will come.
Yes, Mrigari got the costless mercy, right? Kripa. Very good. Neeraj Prabhu.
Dhruva Maharaj is another example in my mind.
No, another brilliant example. But Dhruva did sadhana, isn't it? He went through sadhana bhakti. But yes, that is correct. The Lord gave extraordinary mercy to Dhruva also. A very good example, Prabhu. So therefore, even for accidental bhakti, the Lord responds. He is not a neutral anymore. Very important point. This is the motivation for us to practice Vaidya sadhana bhakti. The Lord responds. But the higher one goes, the more response. For those practicing pure bhakti, they get bigger response than those practicing mixed bhakti, and those who are prema gets the highest result. What is the highest result? When you are in pure love, what happens? We discussed in the last class.
You control the Lord.
Fantastic. Lord comes under your control. Sri Krishna Karshini, he gets so attracted to you. The all attractive gets attracted to the devotee's love, and he becomes the servant of them. He is ready to serve them. So the Lord comes under the control of devotee in prema. That's the highest result you get. So, though that is not the motivation for the devotee, but Lord gets attracted to one's pure love for him. So in the process of bhakti, the Lord hacks us, I'm going to put it like this, an inspiration for the jiva. So when the jiva with bhakti performs his activities of bhakti, then those activities are quite different. In the process of bhakti, we have Supreme Lord, we have jiva, process of bhakti, actions, and destruction of karma. This is a quite different process and quite astonishing. Very, very important point and a motivation for us to practice Vaidya sadhana bhakti. So then Rupa Goswami goes on in Nectar of Devotion, talks about the qualifications for Vaidya sadhana bhakti. So what are the qualifications? So he gives 3 qualifications. In the interest of time, I'm going to go a little faster. So the first qualification is one has developed some level of faith to hear about the topics of Krishna. Very, very important. Some level of faith. First qualification. Second is one is not too attached to material enjoyment. Yeah, I mean, we have body, we have family, we have social life and whatnot. So we need to have some social life, but one is not too attached. If you're too attached, then you won't desire to serve the Lord. You don't desire to practice bhakti. So the second qualification, one is not too attached to material enjoyment. So that's number 2. And the third qualification of Vaidya sadhana bhakti is one is not too attached to impersonal liberation. Very important. If you're attached to Brahma Jyoti, merging with the Brahman, then you cannot get attached to bhakti, because bhakti is all about loving the personal form of the Lord, loving and serving the Lord. So you won't. So these are the 3 qualifications for practicing Vaidya sadhana bhakti. So we begin bhakti by faith, as I said. But how do we get faith? So the jiva develops faith because of the mercy of devotees. Sometimes you see some devotees, some jivas, they just naturally get attracted. The moment they come to know about the temple or know about the kirtan or about the class, they come and just naturally, it looks like it's very natural for them. How is that happening? They never met the devotees in their life. But how do they have the natural attachment to the Lord? Anybody?
In their previous life, they must have been Vaishnavis or Vaishnavas.
Brilliant, actually. Fantastic. So the mercy of the devotees is always there to develop bhakti in Jiva. If not this life, they might have got the mercy of devotees in the previous lifetimes. Very, very important. If he has no contact with bhakti in previous lifetimes, if he has no contact with the devotees in the previous lifetimes, he cannot develop the faith for bhakti in this life. So without that faith, he cannot endeavor to do anything for bhakti. So that is a very, very important point to understand. So that's why we are devotees who already know what is bhakti, who is the Supreme Lord, and devotional service. So we have to give this knowledge to others. We have to give this mercy to others. If not, they might not take up the bhakti process this life. At least they will take up in the next life. So we need to have that level of broader vision. So anyway, so then what are not qualifications? What are the disqualifications for practicing Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti? Rupa Goswami talks about that as well. Again, there are three things he talks about. One is bhukti, means material assets or material enjoyments. So some people say this all the time. Let us enjoy all material enjoyments, and once exhausted the enjoyment, then I will practice bhakti. When I get old, I'll practice bhakti. So this is not a consideration for practicing bhakti, getting old and then after exhausting all the enjoyment. Definitely not. So bhakti is a disqualification for practicing Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti. Then second point is mukti. Mukti means to strive for liberation, strive for mukti, or too much attachment to get impersonal liberation. So these are not qualifications for bhakti. Mukti is also not. So then there is a third one is called varnashrama. It's not a qualification or consideration for bhakti. You can be any varna, you can be in any ashram, but still you can practice bhakti. One does not have to be a brahmana to practice bhakti. But if you take other processes we talked about, jnana yoga or ashtanga yoga, one has to be brahmanical first to practice those processes. Meaning one has to be in sattva gun to start ashtanga yoga and jnana yoga. But that means you have to go through the karma yoga, karma kanda, karma yoga process to purify and come to the platform of sattva. Then you can practice jnana and ashtanga. But for bhakti, no such qualification is needed. You can be a Sudra or lower than Sudra. You can be a Chandala, but still you can take up bhakti and achieve the highest result. So Varnashrama is not the qualification for practicing Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti. Krishna confirms this in Bhagavad Gita. Anybody knows the verse? A beautiful verse. He says, Striyo Vaishyas Tata Sudras Te Piyanti Param Gatim. It can be anybody, men or women or Vaishya or Sudra, or even below that. Still you can practice bhakti and achieve Param Gatim, the ultimate destination, which is Supreme Lord. So one important point to understand is, if one is qualified for bhakti, he or she is not obliged to follow the lower rules. Meaning you developed enough faith and you are in association of devotees and you have access to the scriptures by the mercy of devotees and you are following bhakti, then you are not obliged to follow the lower rules, because you might have practiced something before coming to bhakti, but you don't need to practice those things. You are already upgraded. Meaning if one is qualified for lower rules, yes, he or she should follow the lower rules. Meaning you don't have enough faith in bhakti, you don't have enough faith in sastras, and you practice something else. Yeah, that's okay. You can still follow that, because at least you are accepting the scriptures and you are following the authority. So in that way, you are good. You'll gradually progress. But one is qualified for higher rules, one should follow that. Very, very important. This is a very important principle in bhakti. For example, if you are qualified for bhakti, then we are not obliged to follow the rules of varnashrama, because they are lower rules. Even in Bhakti also, we cannot follow higher rules of Bhakti. Even if you take Bhakti, we talked about the Sadhana Bhakti, there's Bhava Bhakti, there's a Prema Bhakti. If you're not qualified for the higher rules of Bhakti, then we should not follow them. We should follow the lower rules of Bhakti. I was talking about this point in Bhakti Sastri class last week. And I would like to go through those things in this forum as well. So for example, if you're not qualified for Bhava, some people are naturally qualified because they did sadhana and they come to the Bhava state. That is okay. But if you're not qualified, you should not imitate those stages. Instead, we should follow the Vaidya Bhakti sincerely according to our qualification. Once we're steady in our level of Bhakti, then with the guidance of spiritual master, guidance of Diksha Guru or Siksha Guru, we will go to the next level and follow the rules of the next level. This is the very important principle of Vaidya Sadhana Bhakti. It's not that you just one day become very advanced yourself and practice the higher rules of Bhakti. It doesn't work that way. There has to be a guidance. So similarly, we should not go down and follow the lower rules also. Some people do Bhakti and also they do something else. That shows that you're telling Krishna that I don't believe in you. That is also not recommended by the scriptures. But there is an objection here, because that is if we give up all rules of varnashrama, then we'll be lawless. So that is also not good. So you cannot say, okay, I'm practicing Bhakti now, so I am not going to follow any varnashrama rules. I can do whatever I want. That is also not right. So Acharya has qualified this statement by saying that we need to accept the rules of varnashrama that are favorable for Bhakti. For example, I am a husband, and then you have some rules that you have to follow to keep the sanctity of the marriage and do your duties as a husband. As a father, you have to do some duties. As a mother, you have to do. As a wife, you have to do. As a child, you have to do some duties. So Acharya says that you cannot be lawless, but accept the rules of varnashrama that are favorable for Bhakti. If rules are contradictory to Bhakti, then we are not obliged to follow them. So worshipping Pitras, it's mentioned in varnashrama. But Bhakti scriptures say we don't need to worship Pitras because devotional service benefit all the Pitras, our ancestors. So we have to practice Bhakti, and the benefit goes to our ancestors as well. So there is a verse in Srimad Bhagavatam which it says that to the degree we have attachment to material things or material objects or material enjoyment, to that degree we have to follow the rules of varnashrama, even in devotional service. In other words, the more attachment to material things you have, the more rules you have to follow so that you are not sinful. So it's very tough in that sense to have a sinless life if you have attachment to material things. Even then, the rules should not be unfavorable for Bhakti. So that's why Grahasthas have more rules to follow in the family life, because it's very easy to overboard in Grahastha ashram. So we have to be very careful in following the rules of Dharma in family life. But if you are a Mahabhagavat devotee or Paramamsa devotee, then you don't need to follow the varnashrama rules at all. But even those devotees follow the rules to set an example for all of us. Example, Srila Prabhupada. So within Bhakti practice, Vaishnavas also follow certain varnashrama rules. I was giving an example of the cleanliness, taking bath in the morning, wearing clean clothes, keeping our surroundings clean. All these things are varnashrama rules. It's very much needed. And we do different kind of samskaras. We do Graha Pravesh, Garbhadan, Samskara, Jatakarma, Annaprasanna, all those samskaras we perform. Those are like varnashrama, but we do because it's non-contradictory to Bhakti or devotional service. So in this way, one fulfills the bodily needs and social needs in a way Bhakti is not obstructed. So that's how the Vaishnavas follow varnashrama rules and also follow Bhakti in a non-contradictory way. In order for us to do these things, understand and do it in a proper way, you need a guidance of the spiritual master. But still, for devotees, Varnashrama is secondary rules. This is not a primary. For devotees, what is the Mukhya Vidhi? What are the primary rules for devotees practicing bhaktis? Vedic sadhana bhakti.
Shravanam, Kirtanam, Smaranam.
Very good. Very good. Kannan Prabhu?
You believe in Krishna. You have complete faith in Krishna. Surrender.
Fantastic. Fantastic. You have full faith in Krishna. But the Mukhya Vidhis become Shravanam, Kirtanam, Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dashyam, Sakhyam, Atmanivedanam. That's the Mukhya Vidhis. So we cannot say, I follow all the rules, which is not contrary to bhakti, but I don't chant, I don't hear, I don't associate, I don't go to temple, I don't do service. Then you cannot progress further. So Varnashrama rules the devotees follow without contradicting bhakti is called Gauna Vidhis, secondary rules of bhakti. Because following Gauna Vidhis will not create bhakti, but they are conducive for practicing bhakti. So then after that, Srila Rupa Goswami talks about 64 limbs or Angas of bhakti, Vaidya sadhana bhakti. Very, very important. 64, I'm going to put it like this, regulative principles. 64 Angas, all of which should be practiced by Vaidya sadhana bhaktas. Some of which are very prominent and very powerful. Some are for engaging our senses. But out of 64, he says the first 20 are preliminary Angas of bhakti. Because if you don't even follow those first 20, you cannot enter the door to our bhakti. Put it other way. If you follow this first 20, they are the door to our bhakti practice. Very, very important for Vaidya sadhana bhaktas. So this means the 20 items have to be practiced before we practice the other 44 items. Then he also goes, if you look at the 20s, the first 20 are positives, meaning the do's, what we should do, the vidhis. The second 20 are called negatives, meaning what we should not do, nisheda. So without following these 20 items, we cannot enter into bhakti. So then Srila Rupa Goswami goes further and narrows down and says that in this 20, the first 20 preliminary Angas of bhakti, the first 3 are the most important for sadhana bhaktas, sadhakas. What are the first 3? He says the first 3 is Guru Padashraya, that's number 1. To take shelter of the Guru. If you do not have the guidance of Siksha or Diksha Guru, how are you going to practice bhakti properly? So Rupa Goswami puts Guru Padashraya, or accepting the authority of Guru, is the number 1 item in 64 Angas of bhakti. Okay. Then he says that Shiksha Dikshadi Grahanam, to accept the teachings of the Guru and initiation. Very, very important point. This is second Angas of this Angas of bhakti. Second Anga of bhakti. First is Guru Padashraya. Second is Shiksha Dikshadi Grahanam, to accept the teachings or instructions of the Guru and move towards initiation. Number 2. The third he says Vish Rambena Guru Seva. Serve the Guru with great devotion. First is you accept the Guru. Second is you accept the teachings of the Guru. The third is you have to perform service with great devotion to Guru. These are the 3 things Rupa Goswami says important for Vaidya sadhana bhakti. So now the question is, so first is taking shelter of a Guru. Second is accept the teachings. Third is serve the Guru. Which verse in Bhagavad Gita that Krishna talks about these 3 things? Very, very important verse. Prabhakar Prabhu?
I'm recollecting, Prabhu. Give me a minute.
Prabhat Prabhu?
I don't know the Sanskrit, Prabhu, but I think the verse is where Krishna says, go and find a bona fide spiritual master and inquire from him submissively while rendering service to him.
Very good. Prabhakar Prabhu, did you recollect?
Yeah, I mean, if you can tell me the starting, then I
It
can.
is a Tatvidi Pranipatena.
Oh, yeah, I remember. Tatvidi Pranipatena Pariprashnena Sevaya Upadekyanti Shenyanam Jnaninas Tattva Darshina. Yeah, I got it now.
Ubadekshantite Jnanam Jnaninas Tattva Darshana. So the translation is just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master, which is nothing but Guru Padashraya. Anchor from him submissively. That is, which one is that? Siksha Dikshadi Grahanam. Then he says, render service unto him. That is Vishrambena Guru Seva. Then the self-realized spiritual master, the self-realized soul, can impart knowledge unto you because he has seen the truth. So it's beautiful. Rupa Goswami puts these three things because, in other words, he's putting Guru and the devotees has the most important influence on the practice of sadhana bhakti. Very, very important point, such as hearing, chanting, remembering. All those things comes by the mercy of Guru. So what is the function of the function of a Guru is to give us the knowledge, inspiration, and bhakti shakti. Please remember this. You won't get this by reading the books or doing something. It comes only by Guru's mercy. Siksha and Diksha, both. The function of Guru is to give us knowledge, inspiration to practice bhakti, and bhakti shakti, the strength to practice bhakti comes from Guru Kripa. This will not be transmitted from Guru to disciple until the disciple has submissive attitude. If you think that I know better, I can figure this out myself, or I have something like that. Knowledge, inspiration to practice bhakti and bhakti shakti will not be transmitted from Guru to disciple. It is Sastra. In fact, we cannot enter bhakti without the mercy of the Guru. You may practice some show bottle bhakti, but the actual bhakti will not manifest unless you have the kripa of Guru. And if you want to learn, think about this. If you want to learn anything material in this world, you need a teacher. For example, you want to become a physicist. You want to learn physics. Yes, it is a jadagyan. It's material knowledge. Yeah, yes, to some degree, you can get it by reading books yourselves. You can buy, go to a bookshop and buy all the books and sit at home and study. But I will tell you this, but certain aspects of knowledge, even for material knowledge, cannot be transmitted by book. That's why we go to universities to learn from the bona fide teachers, bona fide professors, or bona fide physicists if you want to learn physics. So certain things perhaps you won't get by study or book or whatever. You may sit and read. So it is transmitted not even by words perhaps, simply by presence of a person. I don't know if you have this experience. Simply by presence of a teacher. Teachers, they will give clues somewhere or other which might not even be spoken. So when the student is humble and very enthusiastic about learning, the teacher will teach more to the student. Sometimes they are very stringent. Sometimes they tell you very clearly what to do, what not to do. Think about it. If this is the case for material knowledge, what to speak of spiritual knowledge? The deep truths or the real imports of Vedic scriptures is revealed to us by the mercy of a Guru only. There is no other way. That's why Rupa Goswami puts these three things at the top of the 64 regularity principles for sadhana bhaktas. So that's why the living Guru is extremely important in our life, because they can direct, they can give guidance, they can train us. How do we repay the Guru? Yeah, sometimes because of age, some gurus may leave the planet, but that's okay. But the instructions are always there that we can follow. But how do we pay the Guru? How do we repay what Guru has done for us? How do we pay the Guru? That is the third one, by doing service. What service? Yeah, there are physical service we can do, but another aspect of service to Guru is following the instructions of the Guru. Extremely important. Yeah, we can. It's not a blindly doing, but you can ask clarifying questions and understand why we have to do it. Then with faith, you have to do it. Extremely important. That's how you can pay, at least attempt to pay back what we received from the gurus. So that's why we sing every day in Guru Ashtakam prayers. Shakshat Daritvena Samastra Sastra Yuktas Tata Bhav Yatayeva Sadbhi Kinto Prabhurya Priyaheva Tasya Vande Guru Shri Charanarabindam. The spiritual master acting on the Supreme Lord's behalf must be worshipped as being as good as the Supreme Lord, not as Supreme Lord, but as good as Supreme Lord. For he is the Lord's most confidential servant in broadcasting the Lord's message for the benefit of the conditioned souls involved in the material world. Very, very important point to think about. Then Rupa Goswami goes on and elaborates on the 64 items. I mean, these are like every item we can discuss for hours. We don't have time. Then he goes on and describes them. In fact, he just lists them and gives proofs from Shastras that why they are Angas of Bhakti. So I'm going to go through very quickly the first maybe 20 quickly, and we'll wrap up the Sadhana Bhakti discussion. I mean, why the Sadhana Bhakti discussion? As I said, accepting the shelter of the lotus feet of bona fide spiritual master, number 1. Number 2, following the instructions of the spiritual master and getting initiated and learn how to discharge devotional service from him. Number 2, here the spiritual master includes both Siksha and Diksha Guru. That's what Rupa Goswami and Acharya say. Number 3, obeying the orders of the spiritual master with faith and devotion. Number 4, following the footsteps of previous Acharyas under the direction of a spiritual master and Shastras. Very important. Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. So this is where it comes from. So 4th one. And 5th one, encouraging the spiritual master how to advance in bhakti. Not to talk about some mundane subjects. Yeah, sometimes we go through problems in life and we wanted some guidance and advice. That is totally okay. But not talking about how to make money, whatever the mundane subjects. So that's number 5. Number 6, being prepared to give up material enjoyment for Krishna's sake. Meaning, we should have willingness to do activities for Krishna's pleasure, not for our pleasure. This is a regulatory principle for sadhana bhakta. So 6. 7, one should live simply. So I just want to comment here, this does not mean depriving ourselves also. As much as necessary to maintain oneself, one should take. One should not artificially perform austerity thinking that this will please Krishna and you torture one's body. Bhakti doesn't work that way. It has to be balanced. So similarly, one should not take more than necessary also, become very greedy. So one should live to have proper mind and proper body so we can concentrate on Krishna. That's the point. That's very important, because if mind is not peaceful, you cannot practice bhakti also, so you have to take care of mental stability as well. Then the 8th one is residing in spiritual place which is favorable for us. Generally, they say live in holy dham such as Mathura, or Dwaraka, or Vrindavan, Puri, Mayapur, like that. But wherever Krishna is, that place becomes spiritual place. So it's a kshetra. So then observing the fasting day on Ekadasi, extremely important. 9th, it's a regulatory principle. Then the 10th one is respect all the living entities, the sacred trees, Ashwatha tree, Tulasi plant, cows, and all those things comes under the 10th one. So these are the do's, the 10 do's. These are the positive angas. Then he goes on, gives the negatives, the 10 limbs of bhakti, which are prohibitions that should be carefully followed by the sadhakas. So then he goes that the 11th one is one should rigidly give up the intimate association of bad company. Extremely important, asat sangha. So if you think about it, Rupa Goswami puts this in the first 20. So we can understand that it is very powerful influence on us. Scripture says, when we have friendship, you know what happens? We establish a link in our subtle bodies. So there is a link established, a subtle link established between us and our friend. Mind-to-mind connection get established. if they're friends. So what happens? I'm putting it in a very simple way. So the information such as the emotions, the ideas, the perceptions, the desires can flow between the subtle bodies easily and imperceptibly. Very important point to understand. So who are you friends with is very important, because you are establishing the connection between mind to mind. So this information all can flow between both the parties. So that's why bad association is dangerous, because it will negatively impact our bhakti practice. So that's why you lose taste for chanting, you lose taste for hearing, you start to develop some offensive mentality towards devotees. This comes because of your bad association. Then number 12, one should not try to read Shastras with the idea of earning his livelihood by lecturing on or professionally reciting Srimad Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita and things like that. Meaning, I want to learn Shastra so that I can give class or I can do something and take money from people. That should not be the goal. So that should be avoided. That is 12th. The 13th regulatory principle, one should not instruct a person who is not desirous of accepting bhakti. In other words, the Acharya said, do not take unqualified disciples for material reasons. Sometimes we want to make disciples, and whether qualified or not, it doesn't matter. We want to make disciples. That is prohibited. Then there is a 13th regulatory principle. One should avoid taking up big projects that distracts one from bhakti practice. Interesting ones. Any project requires manpower. We need materials. We need money, mental energy, intellectual horsepower, and whatnot. So when these things go beyond our capacity, it will distract us from bhakti practice. You will be always thinking about doing that practice which is beyond. It's not needed. Just to satisfy our senses, for our own pleasure. But we just mix bhakti a little bit. I'm going to offer to Krishna, but it is basically to gratify our senses. So Rupa Goswami says, don't do that kind of things, because it will distract you from bhakti practice. So when it becomes distraction, then it becomes unfavorable for bhakti. On the other hand, if it is not a distraction, then it should be done for the glorification of the deities and for the preaching purposes. So we need to build a temple, or if you want to build an ashram, whatever. If it is which is not beyond our capacity, it should be done for the glorification of the deities and for the preaching purpose. That's okay. So 15th regulatory principle is one should not be neglectful in ordinary dealings. Meaning, okay, I'm practicing bhakti, I'm a pure devotee, I don't need to take care of ordinary dealings. No, we have to be very mindful, we have to respect everybody, and we have to deal with them accordingly. Then the 16th one should not be under the spell of lamentation in loss or a jubilation in gain. Lamentation means you cannot do devotional service. You are completely, you are lamenting. So you cannot do your duties properly. You cannot do your bhakti practice. So those things should be avoided. 17th is one should not disrespect the devatas. Regulatory principle, Rupa Goswami puts it 17. They are serving the Lord. So we should not disrespect them. And 18th, one should not give unnecessary trouble to any living entity. Very important, not only human beings, but to any living entity. Then the 19th one should carefully avoid the various offenses in chanting the holy names of the Lord and in worshipping the deity in the temple, and offenses against the process of bhakti, then offenses against ordinary people. All offenses come under this category. Then 20th one is one should be very intolerant toward the blasphemy of Supreme Personality of Godhead or his devotee. If somebody is offending or talking bad about the Lord or the sincere devotees, you should not be tolerant. You should go away from the place. Should not entertain gossip. This is a regulatory principle. It's in the top 20. So these are the general principles one should follow in relation to practicing bhakti. But All of these Angas should be practiced within the definition of pure bhakti, which is Anyabhilashita Sunyam, Anukulena Krishna Anusilanam. Very, very important. So the idea is we need to chant under the conditions of these Angas. If you are not even following the first 20, Rupa Goswami says you are not even entering the bhakti realm yet. You can enter the bhakti only when you at least follow these 20 properly. Then our chanting will be more effective. If you do not follow these Angas, then we cannot accept the practice sadhana bhakti properly. And if we cannot practice sadhana bhakti properly, we cannot attain the stage of bhava. So I'm going to, we can keep talking about these things, but I'm going to just pause here and see if there are any questions. All right, I already have 2 questions. I can go through them.
This
Yes,
time allows. I had a question, Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Prabhuji, on the one thing you said, that bad association, right, Prabhu? So I'm trying to understand, how do we don't, as pure devotees, when we develop pure bhakti, we develop backbone to go out in the world and influence non-devotees, because I'm not sure, whether every bad association, a person with not can be avoided, but I would want to spread my culture and want to spread Krishna consciousness. So I would want to take out the filters of, is that the person who, who I can, maybe there's a spark in the person, and by talking more and by they looking at our actions as devotees, the heart can change. But if I'm operating with the fear that that's bad association, then I'm losing out in that attempt.
Right. Yes, Prabhuji. So here, very fantastic question, Prabhu. First of all, thank you for asking. So the bad association means, in Sanskrit, it's called Sangha. Sangha means you associate with someone very intimately, meaning without considering for principles and these things like that. You just associate with them at the equal level and very intimately. That means very intimate means we exchange emotions, we exchange gifts, we exchange our ideas, we exchange our perceptions and things like that. Okay? Meaning, I'm saying exchange here, not just giving. So that means we accept what they believe in to some extent, and we also give what we believe in to them to some extent. So in that process, what happens is we get very intimate. So when there is an intimate relationship as a friend, as I told you, there is a very subtle link between the subtle bodies, between the minds gets established. So the information flows back and forth. That means we will be influenced by their perceptions, by their ideas, by their practices also. Okay, so that's what I mean by bad association. But if the association is only to give, meaning we want to teach our culture to them, we want to give our the treasure that we have in our culture to them, and we want to help them or educate them, it's not a bad association. It is not like the equal level. It is like, you are sharing your knowledge in the mood of helping them. So you are giving your association, you are not taking association. Makes sense, Prabhuji?
Yes, Prabhuji. Kind of, you keep your guards on, and then you ensure that, because it's a responsibility when you're treading out of your safe zone. Exactly. So you ensure that it's only a give and not a take, even unintentionally, which is hard to do.
Exactly, Prabhuji. So it is like going to office, right? So we have our beliefs, they have their beliefs, and we work, we do some work, and we won't associate very closely, intimately. So the problem comes only there is an intimate relationship. And that's where we have to be very careful, not compromising our principles, but at the same time, have a friendship with them and try to help them in that way.
Got it, Prabhuji. Thank you so much.
No problem. Nice question. Thank you. Mataji, you had a question?
Prabhu, I was just telling Prabhat Prabhu has raised his hand.
Oh, okay. Prabhat Prabhu, is it from the previous answer?
No, I had a question, but you can take the other questions if you had any, Prabhu.
So we had Lako Prabhu asked a question, right, Veena Mataji? You mentioned
Yes,
to me?
yes, Prabhu.
Okay, so you have a question in front of you? Or?
Do you want me to read it, Prabhu?
Yes, please. Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't have it ready, so I'm just getting it.
Yes, Prabhu. Yes, Mataji. So Neeraj Prabhu was asking a question. Maybe I can take the question in chat. The question is, based on today's class on Bhakti, how do we understand the mercy of Krishna and Putana? We mentioned about Ajamil or Bali Maharaj. Oh, beautiful question, Prabhuji. So Putana's, the mercy that Putana received is a very extraordinary mercy from the Lord. And she became a Datri in the spiritual world, right? So very few demons, very few demons get that kind of a spiritual body. Killed by Krishna, the demons killed by Krishna, but they got the spiritual body. In the sense, they got a position in the spiritual world. And Putana is one of them. Agasura is the second one. Putana got it because she gave her milk to Krishna as a mother. Even though her intention is to kill Krishna, but still she gave her milk. And Krishna, when he sucked her milk, he really purified her completely. And she got the Datri position in the spiritual world. So this is how the Acharya explained it. And it is an extraordinary mercy, very rare.
Thank you, Prabhu.
No problem, Prabhu. Thank you. Veena Mataji, you ready?
Yes, Prabhu.
Could you read your question?
Yes, Prabhu. The first day of the class highlighted Mata Yashoda's strong spiritual devotion towards Krishna. From my very limited knowledge, Mata Yashoda's love for Krishna, although very pure and devotional, was as a mother's love for her child. She wasn't receptive to accepting Krishna as a supreme Lord. She always said Krishna is my son and not God. To me, Mata Yashoda's love for Krishna symbolizes more of love for a material entity and not a spiritual devotion, which is meant to be towards Supreme Lord. Please enlighten me with more knowledge.
Okay. And that's a beautiful question. And thank you, Prabhu, for asking. I don't know if Prabhu is here. But I mean, this is a very deep question, actually. So in the interest of time, I'm going to make it a little short. So Mother Yashoda's love for Krishna is expression of her prema, actually the pure love for Krishna. So she's always dependent upon the main bow of Vatsalya. Vatsalya means parental affection or parental love. So that is Mother Yashoda. But before we talk about Mother Yashoda's the pure love for Krishna, first we need to understand what is pure love in the first place and what is not pure love. So there is a beautiful verse in Chaitanya Charitamrita which defines what is pure love and what is material love. So it says, Atma Indriya Priti Vanchatare Bali Kama Krishna Indriya Priti Ichchadare Prema Nama. Meaning, the love is, it means the love is a desire to please Krishna's senses, is pure love. If it is just directed towards Krishna and pleasing Krishna's senses, that is called prema. Anything other than that is not prema. Anything other than that is not pure love. When that love is directed to the pleasure of one's own senses, it is known as lust. It says kama. So with that said, Acharya said the real love is free from mode of passion. Put it other way around. So what is real love? What is pure love means? Pure love means it is free from mode of passion or the motivation for a personal gain or seeking one's personal enjoyment as an operative factor within the relationship. That's what the real love means. So it's most rare. It is not, you cannot see that love in this world, meaning you cannot see that kind of love on the material platform. And that's why this is the basis for our spiritual life, the basis of our bhakti. So the lust is only the perverted reflection. Srila Prabhupada writes it beautifully in Bhagavad Gita. The lust is only the perverted reflection of that love, real love. And that's what we find in the material world. However, there is no comparison to mother's love for a child in the material world. For a mother's love a child without any expectation of return. We see that in the material world. That is the closest to the real love that we can find in the material world. That is mother's love for the child, which is also, it's not a pure love yet. Why? Because it is generally true. But this material world is so polluted that the mother sometimes thinks that, okay, my child will grow up and will take care of me. Sometimes we get that kind of feeling. So thus, there may be still some desire to get something in exchange. So that is there. So another point is that it can be that the love of mother for a child in the material world is tinged with some sense of personal satisfaction, also gratification. For example, when she feeds her son or daughter or whatever, she gets some pleasure out of it because she's feeding her son or feeding her daughter, which is very natural, which is totally okay. She enjoys doing it. She gets a full satisfaction by doing it. So when the son or daughter is awarded, for example, some first prize or medal or gold medal or whatever, she takes pride in their achievements. So this is all on the platform of material pleasure and pain, and also on the bodily connection. So that's why mother's love is the more pure or closest to the pure love you can find in the material world, but still it is not, because it operates on the platform of body. So now coming back to Prabhu's question. So the mother Yashoda's love is, she loves Krishna. There is no selfish feeling at all. And it is completely unalloyed, free from all desires for material gain. As per the definition I just gave. So with that said, we can clearly see the Mother Yashoda's, the interpersonal exchanges with Krishna are directed towards this objective and performed in the pure consciousness. So this is not on the material platform. So though it appears as if she's connected to her son or attached to her son materially, but it is not. It is completely spiritual, because the pure love means it is directed only to Krishna, not to anybody else. Very, very important point. And also, if you look at any pastimes of Krishna with his pure devotees, the two things are very important, the scripture says. One is tattva, meaning we need to understand the truth behind, or the principles behind the pastimes, number one. Second is the lila, means the pastime. So we cannot genuinely appreciate the lila until we understand the tattva. So with this, this is the guidelines given by our acharyas to understand the pastime. So if you apply this, there are two types of perfected devotees we see in the spiritual world. One is the Sadhana Siddhas. By doing sadhana bhakti, spiritual practices, they achieve the sadhya. Sadhya means the highest goal of pure love for Krishna. Possible, sadhana bhakti, sadhana siddhas. The second type is Nithya Siddhas, those who are eternally perfected the devotion. There will never be a time they will not be perfect. They're always in pure love of Krishna. They never fall down. So Mother Yashoda is Nithya Siddha devotee. In fact, Acharya says she is a Ladini Shakti. She is also part of Ladini Shakti, not an ordinary Jivatma. So in other words, she is eternal mother of Krishna in Goloka Vrindavan. So the Vatsalya Prema at the highest degree is permanently situated in her heart. So there is nothing else. The highest degree, you cannot find anything more of Vatsalya Prema in anybody else. Mother Yashoda is the embodiment of that. So then the second, you also asked, she doesn't see Krishna as a supreme Lord, right? So that's because of the power of her Vatsalya Prema. The power of her sweet love for Krishna is so great that it overpowers the Aishwarya Gyan. Aishwarya Gyan means understanding the Lord as the supreme Lord. It is so powerful. So it overpowers the Aishwaryas. She knows Krishna is the supreme Lord, but her love is so strong and so powerful, she just forgets it. And her love is so strong and so pure. Even Krishna forgets that he is the Supreme Lord. He just covers Krishna's Swarupa Gyan and he becomes like son only. And he cries and he's afraid of Mother Yashoda. He runs away from her or whatever when he does mistake. So that's the power of her love. I'll give you a simple example. When Krishna lifted a Govardhan hill, so all the Vrajavasis, all the gopis and gopas came and said, "Oh wow, Krishna is the Supreme Lord," because he lifted the big mountain with his little finger. So he has to be a Supreme Lord, otherwise you cannot lift it. But then Mother Yashoda would say that no, that is not true. He did not do it alone. Balram helped. Nanda Maharaj helped. Then she also said ultimately Narayana, the Vishnu, is one who protects everybody. So he also protecting Krishna and he gives strength to Krishna. So in other words, even if some knowledge of opulence of Krishna is given to Mother Yashoda, the Aishwarya Gyan is shown to Mother Yashoda, she will not accept it. In fact, Krishna himself tried that. He showed Mother Yashoda the whole universe within his body. Then after seeing it, she forgot about it completely. So the strength of, the point I'm making is the strength of her love that Mother Yashoda has for Krishna only allows certain type of knowledge. I'm going to put it like that. And that love will allow only the knowledge that is favorable for the increase of her prema for Krishna. That's it, nothing more, nothing less. Her prema itself, her love itself will cover other types of knowledge. So that's how we should understand this. So not only the greatness, but other relationships get covered if you look at it very carefully. Meaning, in the different rasas, the other rasas get excluded. So because Mother Yashoda is in the highest degree of Vatsalya ras, she doesn't know anything about Madhurya rasa that gopis have. She doesn't know anything about the depth of Sakya ras that gopas have for Krishna. Nothing. So that the Madhurya, because if she knows about them, then that will interfere with her Vatsalya ras. So she doesn't want to understand anything. She's completely satisfied with being a mother for Krishna. That's it. So therefore, they were never aware of, she's never aware of the Madhurya ras. And in some cases, the Lord Shakti also operates like the Leela Shakti to cover certain aspects of knowledge, because Lord helps her. Because her love is so strong as a mother, Lord helps her to have that love grow and grow through Leela Shakti. So he also covers himself and acts like a son. So these are some of the points, but this is a very deep, at least for now, we can understand it this way. Okay, Prabhat Prabhu, you want to go next?
Yeah, thank you, Prabhu. I had two questions, but maybe in the interest of time, I'll ask just one, Prabhu. The one is based on the comment you made in the last class about Dvida monkey, who is in the Bhava platform and then falls down. So, Prabhu, as we understand in our Sampradaya, let alone be on the Bhava platform, it's just not possible to make progress in Bhakti unless you respect Guru, devotees along with the Lord. How is it the case in case of Dvida monkey that he reaches the Bhava platform without honoring the primeval Guru, who is none other than the expansion of the Lord himself? How does he even get to the Bhava platform before falling down? Do Acharya say, is it just a Leela to enact a pastime and teach us the importance of not committing an offense, or is it a genuine fall down?
Well, it's when somebody is in Bhava platform and they fall down, there is some aspect of the Lord's Leela there. Leela aspect is there for sure. But Acharya, in case of Dvida monkey, it is said that because of his arrogance and his pride of his strength, even though he is in the Bhava platform, see, you need to understand that he did not attain, he attained Bhava, then he has a tendency to commit offense. If you remember, I talked about Anartha Nivritti takes you to Bhav because you get attracted to the Lord. So in this, the Dvida monkey's case, he got attracted to Lord Ramachandra. And he started to serve his lotus feet so sincerely. And he got to that stage. So there is no Anartha. But however, he committed offense against Lakshman. And not only Lakshman, even some senior monkeys as well. In the sense that this offense is not a very grave offense, but the offense of showing his physical strength in serving the Lord. It's like some kind of a competition that I have more power and I can do more service to the Lord and things like that. So that turned into an offense. Sometimes we might not intentionally offend, but at least we start to show off our talent or capacity or whatever. And in that process, we may offend a devotee, even if it may be unconscious also, but still it's an offense. Since he caused that offense, committed that offense, the reaction started to manifest. And the reaction of that offense is that it's a tendency to associate with Bhamasura.
Right, Prabhu.
Okay.
But can one get to the bhava platform itself while having such mentality or not being free from such mentality? Because in our sampradaya, we hear you have to, honoring Krishna means honoring the Guru and his devotees as well.
That is true, but you need to understand this. At the bhava stage, the anarthas won't disturb your bhakti anymore. But the propensity to commit aparadha or commit mistake is still there in the jiva until you attain prema. That's why bhava is a initial stage of pure love for Krishna. It's a ray of sun. The tendencies are there, but they are suppressed because you suppress them, you purified them, but still the tendency is still there because it's not pure love of Krishna yet. It's not fully blown love yet. So that's what happened to Bharat Maharaj also. Even though it is Leela, but still Bharat Maharaj developed attachment to the deer because the tendency to get attached to material things is still there in Bhav. Because the pure love of Krishna is not fully manifest yet.
I see. Thank you.
No problem. Good question, Prabhu. Thank you. Chandana Mataji.
I have a question, Prabhuji. Like in the present situation, how can we select a guru? Like 10 years back when I started my spiritual journey, though I know the guru is first step to any spiritual journey, I don't have, or I don't know how to select one. So I thought, God, you're my guru, guide me from now. Or Krishna, you're my guru, guide me from here onwards. In this context, I have a question like, will the guru come to me, or is the Krishna inside me guiding till now? Because I see myself as a very different girl before 10 years, but now I am totally different. So do I still need to find a guru who I can interact with, or is Krishna inside me is my guru?
Well, the first point, I mean, beautiful actually. Thank you for asking this question. First, as I said, you develop faith in bhakti or bhakti process or devotees or the Lord, shastras, whatever, from the previous execution of devotional service in the previous lifetimes or whatnot, or even in this lifetime by the mercy of a devotee. So when the initial faith is developed, we start to surrender to the Lord, at least to some extent. Then you start to realize that, okay, first you start with, okay, I accept the Lord, but I'm not sure, about accepting a guru or whatnot. But the Lord, in that sense, because of your surrender to Him, He acts like a Chaitya Guru. He is seated in your heart as a Paramatma. He starts to direct you, giving you good intelligence to make right choices in life. So He starts to get in, as I said, the Lord becomes a prominent action, the prominent factor in the 5 factors of action. Even we show a little bit surrender. I gave an example of Ajamil and Gajendra and so on. Then the internal Paramatma, which is guiding you, will manifest externally also as a devotee. And they come in your life. The Lord sends devotees in our life to further our advancement, to inspire us. As I said, the knowledge, inspiration, Bhakti Shakti comes only by the mercy of Guru. So the Paramatma manifests externally as a devotee, and they start to connect us more with Krishna. Then that person acts as a Siksha Guru. Then continue to serve the Lord in the association of devotees, in the association of a Siksha Guru or whatnot. Then you develop more attachment to the process of bhakti, and more faith increases. So bhakti start to manifest more and more. Then that's how we progress further. Makes sense to you? So Krishna sends Guru in our life.
Yes, thank you. And one more question is meditation different than the spiritual process, or are they both the same?
Well, meditation is one of the aspect of bhakti, for sure. Because we have to remember, meditation means you remember the Lord. So Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, then Pada Sevana, like that. So meditation alone is not enough. We have to go to the other processes of bhakti also to achieve perfection in this life. So meditation is for Satya Yuga, because people are completely in Sattva. So they can meditate on the Lord, and they didn't have any envy towards anybody. They are in Shanta, like mind is very satisfied. So they can focus on the form of the Lord within the heart. That is in Satya Yuga. For Kali Yuga, the mind is very disturbed.
Yes.
Right. So the recommended process is chanting. So it is Shravanam and Kirtanam both. So chanting is the primary process, which is Yuga Dharma, that has to be supported with Shravanam, hearing the knowledge, spiritual knowledge, and practice, Pada Sevanam, Archanam, Vandanam. We have to do all these services in conjunction with chanting the holy names. Deity worship is extremely important. Coming to temple and seeing the deity and offering worship to the deity and doing some services in the temple. All these things comes under the Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam. So the Smaranam gets a little more stronger and stronger by doing other aspects of bhakti.
Okay.
Because at the end of the day, we have to constantly think about the Lord. That's the highest stage of bhakti. How do you get there? Just only meditation cannot help in Kali Yuga. So you need the primary process, which is chanting, supported by all other Angas of the 9 types of bhakti. Make sense, Chandra Mataji? So chanting is the most important form of meditation.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
For Kali Yuga. Good question. Thank you. Veena Mataji, you have any question?
No, Prabhu.
No? Okay.
Hi, Krishna Prabhu. If I may ask another question.
Yes, Prabhu, please.
So this is related to last week's class, and then we briefly discussed. I just wanted to, for the interest of everyone, and also had a follow-up question. So if I may ask.
Yes, please.
Prabhu, we talk about getting away from material desires, right? And then in the spiritual world, sometimes I hear that, have desire to serve Krishna. So should it be have desire to serve Krishna or have bhav to serve Krishna? Because bhav makes you pure, because you're not asking anything in return. Desire is dangerous. So I just wanted you to shed light on the difference.
So that's an interesting question, Prabhu. Thank you for asking that. But I think that the desire, the pure desires develop when you have pure love for Krishna, right? Or the pure desires will be an impetus to develop the pure love for the Lord. It's like there's a symbiotic relationship here. Okay. In the conditioned state, in the beginning level of our bhakti, we have a mixed desire. So we have a desire to enjoy our senses, and we also have a desire to please Krishna's senses. So it is a mixed, basically. So according to the mix, we engage in activities. Okay. So the idea of any yoga practice, especially Bhakti Yoga here we are talking about, is to purify the material desires, to purify the desires that are not conducive for our bhakti. Okay, because desire, though it is abstract, but that is very important, because mind operates at the desire level, meaning first it desires it. When mind is desiring something, then it goes and achieves it. Like that. Though the desires of serving the Lord is not coming from the mind, it's coming from the soul. But if the mind is completely occupied with material desires, then the spiritual desires rarely surfaces. So the process of Bhakti Yoga, Sadhana Bhakti especially, is to control the mind, control the senses, and practice Bhakti so that the soul can become more empowered and the soul can, start to have the spiritual experience by doing activities, Bhakti activities. So the spiritual desires get stronger and stronger, and same time the mind's material desires slowly gets purified or removed from the mind. Then param drishtva nivartante happens, meaning you start to experience something higher. Then the mind loses the taste for the lower things and it holds on to the higher taste, which is serving the Lord. So that means the soul's desire to serve the Lord becomes very prominent and it permeates the mind. So mind loses the taste for the lower desires, which is to enjoy the senses. So this is how it works. So that's why we use though mind is material from a philosophy point of view, but still we need mind to achieve self-realization. We need mind to achieve bhava, the pure love for Krishna. Because pure love for Krishna is in the soul, but mind is the person which is obstructing that. So we need to make sure that mind also gets a good experience with serving the Lord. So mind loses the taste for the lower desires, and the primary desire of the soul, which is to serve the Lord, becomes the primary desire for the mind also. Makes sense to you, Prabhu? Or am I?
Yes, Prabhu. It makes sense, Prabhu. And I was also thinking, Prabhu, because there's always a conflict, right, with desires, because we behave differently with the spiritual benefit as a desire versus material benefit as a desire. And sometimes as human beings, then we are at conflict, right? Our reaction to doing something in a material world is always to get some benefit. Versus in a spiritual world, the only benefit probably you are getting is blessings of the God, which is the major benefit you anyhow want. But it's not easy to maintain the boundaries between the spiritual and the material benefit, because you're a human being, and then you are conditioned to always do things in return for something.
Very nice, Prabhu. Okay, that's an important principle, Prabhu. Let us talk about the principle of one of the important principles of Bhakti. The important principle is that according to our level of Bhakti, we do cultivate desires that are anukul to Bhakti. Meaning, at the highest level, we can say that even the desire for going back to Krishna is not necessarily anukul, not favorable, because they are very satisfied because they are in the bhava stage or they are in pure love for Krishna. So they just desire to serve Krishna. It doesn't matter where they are. They may be in the material world or in the spiritual world or maybe in the hellish planets. Does not matter. Wherever they are, there's an opportunity to serve the Lord is there. That is enough. That is anukul for their bhakti, because they're completely realized and they have a full love for Krishna. That's the highest level of bhakti, pure bhakti. Okay. But if one is not there, then they have to set the desire accordingly, which is anukul for them, anukul for their bhakti. So this desire cannot be pratikul. It cannot be unfavorable to bhakti. So it has to be a favorable desire. And so desire, as I said, it is abstract. So when there is a desire, then we set the goals. Goals are more tangible, and it gives a tangible direction for our endeavor in bhakti. So we said that's why in the conditioned state or in the sadhana stage, we need spiritual goals, Acharya says, because to control the mind, and also we have a tangible direction so that our endeavor is focused. Right? So because mind needs some engagement. So we set the goal and say, this goal is based on this desire. The desire is I want to chant 24 rounds. So that's my goal. I want to chant more is a desire, but how many rounds? I quantify it and set the goal. So it gives a tangible direction for my endeavor in bhakti. I'm just giving an example. Right? So according to our level of bhakti, we have to cultivate the desire. And in order to engage our mind and intelligence in the service in an anukul way to bhakti, we set the goals and we put the endeavor, engage the senses in that. That's how we control the mind and reach the stage of bhav.
Got it, Prabhu. So that means over a period of time, my spiritual desires would be a majority of what my mind thinks if I do if I'm on the path of pure
Exactly.
bhakti, and my material desires, and then the conflict of how I behave in a spiritual setup versus a non-spiritual setup would lower down because my spiritual desires are taking over my mind.
That's exactly. That's why Krishna talks about the hierarchy in the 12th chapter. So it is important to serve Krishna, and if we keep serving Krishna, then the selfless devotional mode will come, the pure love for Krishna. Then he talks about the hierarchy. He says that at the lowest level of bhakti, just to work for me, meaning do services for me, because you engage your senses. You cannot think, you cannot purify your mind, you cannot control your mind. At least engage your senses in my service, he says. Then he says, as you continue to do services for me, then you get purified a little bit. The mind gets little bit more purified and more controlled. So you come to the next level, that is sadhana level. Then you say, oh, okay, so then now I'm doing services, I developed some interest, so I want to do some sadhana. I want to hear the classes, I want to chant, I want to clean the temple, I want to do some deity worship, I want to bring flowers, whatever. Then you come to the sadhana level. Then you start to develop studying the scriptures, associating with the devotees more. Then Krishna says, when you continue to do sadhana, then you'll come to a pure bhakti level where your desires are completely purified, and that becomes the forefront of your consciousness. The desires to serve the Lord 24/7. That's a pure bhakti. So Krishna goes through this hierarchy from, I think, 12th chapter, 8th verse, all the way to 11th verse. It goes through the hierarchy.
Sure, Prabhuji. Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for taking time. Yes.
Thank you for the question, Prabhu. Thank you very much. I think we are 7 o'clock here. If there are more questions, please email me or message me. I'll address that. So with that, we'll stop here. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.